With a sleek design, a polished appearance, and a striking color scheme, this 3D printer is more than just a tool. It's a showpiece. In fact, currently it's more of a showpiece than anything else, mainly because I haven't bought panels for it yet, but we'll get there. Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be covering my second Trident, and how I built it up into the machine that you see here today. Despite its flashy appearance, this is a pretty standard build from a mechanical standpoint. Worry not though, I will be giving this machine a performance overhaul in the coming months. I just haven't finalized anything yet. The frame you see here is a standard 300mm LDO Trident frame. Compared to my 250, a 300mm build feels really roomy, and I must admit it is nice to have all of that build volume. It has come in handy a couple of times. For the printed parts, I settled on Polymaker ASA purely because of the incredibly bright colors. I've heard some not so good things about this filament, but I should be fine as long as I don't push the chamber temp too high. My final goal for this build is going to be around 65 to 70 degrees C, but I don't want to do anything that would compromise the printer's aesthetics in order to get there. That might be setting myself up for failure, but at the end of the day, I really just want a pretty printer. So, the gantry is mostly together. You can see I only have one belt, the half on. It's sat over here. I was just testing the length because I was concerned about what tool heads I could put on this. Basically, I have this bin of old belts, basically. Some of them are crap, like Pouch or even just no-name alley belts. Like, I don't know at all what these guys are, but they're 9mm. So I wanted to see and make sure that I had belts that could reach long enough to not just go on the main carriage. Like I could do a Dragon Burner where it just touches in the middle and just clamps down. But Archetype and Zoll use these little belt clips. So I wanted to make sure that those would fit. And they do. So right now I'm actually printing behind me in carbon fiber ASA. I'm going to do the Archetype carriage. I'm still not positive which one of those tool heads I'm going to run. Breakneck is the obvious choice, but there are issues with CPAP fans in hot chambers, and also breakneck blocks are giving a pretty significant double peak on Y, so that's probably not the play. Zollpap is also an option with the Zoll carriage, but I don't have any M2 hardware, and to be honest, assembling it was kind of a pain, so I'm not sure if I want to go that route. So that's still mostly up in the air, but we'll see. What else do I have to show? I have some electronics in, that is like two things, but I did get the DIN rails mounted. I originally printed and installed the normal Trident motor mounts, and then later realized, wait a sec, I'm going inverted electronic. So I had to change all that stuff. It was kind of a big pain, but now all the proper stuff is in, at least as far as I know. I'm going to be cutting my own panels, so that's going to be interesting, and probably not something I'm going to do for a while, to be honest. I'll probably just run the whole printer as a PLA machine for a little bit, even though I know that makes people die inside a little. For the Z, we are using Wapping's kinematic bed mounts. I don't think these are really necessary, but why not? Also, just like on the 250, I've installed 4 bed fans to help circulate air once I have the printer enclosed. Just for the record, I did all of this before I bought Unscientifically's PCBs, and I'd highly recommend using those if you plan on using bed fans on your own build. Wago connectors work well enough, but the PCB would make things a lot cleaner. One other thing, these motors here, currently installed, are the LDO, I don't know how you're supposed to say it, 2004, 2004, 2004, whatever, MAHs, so they're the 0.9s. I don't know how I feel. I like the idea of them, but I do feel that this is a pretty heavy, heavy printer. So it might be better to switch to these guys, which are my old Moons motors that were on my other Trident before I swapped them for high temp versions. I did my 7-minute benchy with these, whatever. They have plenty of torque, so I might use these guys instead, and then save those 0.9s for something that doesn't require as much torque, like hypothetically a much smaller printer with a 3D printed frame that everyone hopefully knows what I'm talking about at this point. The gantry is just the stock Trident gantry with Klee's beefy front idlers, or BFI. Nowadays, these are the preferred idlers to use, as the stock ones tend to crack quite easily, especially under high belt tension. Speaking of belt tension, Since the stock motor mounts do not have double shear compatibility, we are going to be quite limited in terms of the max tension that we can run safely. We're looking at about 2.5 pounds of force at best. Again, this is something to fix in the future. As you can see, the gantry is now flipped, so we have the XY joints upside down. The rail is still normal, but this way we can fit our tool heads. I also, of course, had to flip the idlers and such, but that's basically it. Now, I also have some archetype stuff printed, as you can see here. So I have some of the carriage bits, I have the belt clips here. This is all in carbon fiber ASA, so it looks really nice and pretty. Additionally, where is it? Here, I have the clicky mounts. I have a few other parts printed, as you can see. This is again for the Rapido. I don't know, I could put the dragon with the volcano block. I just figured that realistically it doesn't matter. Like, it's not gonna make much of a difference in terms of flow between the two. Theoretically, the dragon would probably beat it out a little bit, but I don't think this build is gonna go fast enough to even necessitate that. Rapido UHF with a CHT should go plenty fast, but we'll see. Again, this is one part, no big deal to change. After this, I installed the bed as well as all of the electronics, but unfortunately I hit a bit of a snag with the tool head. I will let past me explain. The bed is all in place, bed fans are installed, the wiring is there. I mean, it's the tool head's not on, but it's all there for it. And really, I've been stuck on one particular element for the last 2 months, which has been this guy right here, the actual carriage for archetype. So whether it's just a skill issue, or it's probably just a skill issue to be honest, but I never had any luck whatsoever with the stock archetype clips. I tried a bunch, never quite worked. I don't know if it was like an extrusion multiplier issue. I thought originally it could have been wet filament because I'm using a carbon fiber filament, so if you don't dry it, it gets really wet, and then that could affect your tolerances. No matter what I tried, it didn't really work. So I kind of just left it because a few other people had, or really one other person, had a mod coming soon that would basically be the same carriage, but without any of the clips. So I sort of just held off and waited for that. That day is still yet to come, so I decided to take matters into my own hands and create the most cursed carriage humanly possible. And I'm going to show you here. You might need to sit down. It is the stock archetype carriage, but with the VORON, like, stealth burner style belt attachment points. So you just run the belts, clamp it, and you're done. It's so cursed. It goes against basically everything that archetype wants to do, but I did it anyways, and posted some pictures, and definitely ruffled a few feathers. Kaza, right, like immediately after, came out with his own design, which you can see right here. If we'll focus, there we go. Which is basically the same deal, but instead of using the clips, it just wraps the belts around the screws and out the side. This has a lot of advantages, mainly because you can actually pre-tension things, whereas with my old ones, there's no way. So that's really nice. My belts are at a point where they're not like properly tensioned or anything, and that's without needing to do very much tensioning at all. I basically just got the threads engaged on the BFIs, and that's it. So it's really nice to be able to pre-tension, because then you have just a lot more freedom when it comes to tensioning your belts after the fact, and you couldn't do that at all on my old design. Otherwise, like hardware-wise, again, if we'll focus, this is identical to stock. You don't need anything else that you wouldn't have if you bought parts for the stock setup. One disadvantage is there's nowhere to tuck the excess belts, so I sort of pushed everything to the left side because I know that this thing is going to home this way. So I tried to keep minimal excess belt on that side, and realistically I'm just going to have to cut it down anyways, but it wouldn't be too hard to either add a new slot or, and this is going to be kind of hard to see, but you could maybe widen this slot and then push the excess belt back into it like that in order to get it to work. But honestly, at this point, I'm not going to change it. I'm happy with this as is. So now we can finally continue with the rest of the build, get the tool head on, and actually finish this thing, which would be great because it's been sat here for months. I also installed LED strips along the top to light the print area. These are just using Eddie's LED baffles, and some generic LED strips that I bought on Amazon. You can buy like 5 meters of strips for super cheap, and then just cut them down and you'll have more than enough for all of your printers. I would recommend printing a few different versions of the clips, just scaled up and down slightly. The original files, printed at 100% scale, didn't fit into my LDO frame very well, but they fit perfectly fine into the FormBot frame on my 250 Trident. Just something to be aware of. At this point, the only thing left to do was to assemble the tool head and, actually get the printer running. For my first print on the machine, I decided to go with Rolohan's very own Rolo Trophy. Sensorless homing was working reliably, and it looks like we're good to go. Ignore the poor bed adhesion here. I didn't wash the PEI plate before starting the print. At this point, I think it had sat out for something like 4 months, so yeah, not exactly the cleanest. At this point, the printer has been done for basically 6 months. It's been fine, but I'm not completely happy with its performance yet. The 5015s do a good job, but the toolhead still feels pretty top-heavy, and you can really see it in my input shaper graphs. Still, this machine is definitely not hopeless, and with some effort, I think it can actually become my best performing printer. Really, there's no telling what the future holds. As always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks with another video, hopefully gonna be about how to tune your 3D printer for speed.